Hello everyone, Ron here from L.T.L Tutoring Central, and this week I'm talking about something a little more personal, still connected to education of course, but I'm talking about when I was very young. Yes, long time ago. I always tease my students that I'm 99 years old. I'm not quite 99 yet, but I'm working on that. However, when I was very young, I went to a one-room school for the first couple of years, grade 1 and grade 2. They didn't have kindergarten. When my family moved to the farm, I was quite young and I was eager to get started at school and couldn't wait to get to grade 1. And when I got to the school, I wasn't quite as impressed. It was a one-room school with grades 1 through 6. If you were a little older, there was another one-room school down the road, and then secondary school students, or older secondary school students at least, got bussed in. After grade 2, they started busing all of us, and they were closing all the one-room schools at that time. But the one-room school that I went to had a wood stove in it, and sometimes my job was to collect the kindling for the stove. There was no running water, so there were no taps, no flush toilets, nothing like that. There was a kind of outhouse attached to the school at the back, and there was a pump in the yard for water, a hand pump, and you pump the water into a container, bring it into the school, and there was a dipper there if people wanted a drink of water. And as I say, there was a kind of outhouse connected to the school. I don't remember actually using that myself. I think I always waited to go home. Luckily, home wasn't too far away. It was a short walk to the school. Felt a little longer at the time because I was very young and little. It kind of seemed like a bit of an adventure. It was quite exciting, particularly when you started doing it on your own. I was very nervous as well. I was always a nervous child, but I did want to learn, and I thought that this would be a great place to do that. Unfortunately, there were a lot of rules when I got into the school. The teacher I had, and there's only one teacher for all of those grades, and she was very strict. She was very old-fashioned, and she was very, very strict. So there were so many rules. Students today, some of the students I talk to here, they can't believe some of the rules that used to exist back then. I don't know how easily they would survive in the school nowadays. However, it wasn't really a rule, but I do remember she was always trying to get me to switch to my right hand. I'm a left-handed person, and she really felt strongly that I should be using my right hand. And of course, previous to my generation, they were even more strict about that, trying to force you to use your right hand. I wasn't under too much pressure, but I do recall sometimes switching hands when she would be walking toward me, and then switching back when I thought she wasn't looking, because I'm really just naturally left-handed. So the right hand, I was a little ambidextrous there for a while, but I would say ambidextrous but messy with both hands. So I wasn't a particularly neat printer in grades 1 and 2 with either hand, but I could do equally just as bad, let's put it that way. It was interesting, and I'm glad that I had that experience, but I have to say that the experience at the time wasn't all positive, as I say, because of the strictness and the rules. The education was fine, although again, very, very regimented. Not nearly as interesting as I try to make it for my students today, and I think many teachers do. There were rules even at playtime. When we went out into the yard, boys and girls were supposed to play on separate sides. Girls on one side of the school, boys on the other. And the swings and teeter-totter, or seesaw if you like, were on one side. So every once in a while, I don't remember whether it was once a week or every other day, the boys and girls were supposed to switch sides, and that way everyone got a fair chance at the side with the trees or at the side with the swings and the seesaw. You had to be very still in class. You weren't allowed to wiggle around or move. You weren't supposed to do anything without asking, and I sometimes, I didn't get into big trouble. I wasn't a really misbehaved student, but I do remember sometimes when the teacher would say wrong to somebody, because remember there were several grades in the one big room. Well, relatively big. And so sometimes the teacher would say wrong, and I would think she was saying Ron, and I would say yes, and of course then I would be in trouble for speaking out of turn, which was not allowed, of course. Anyway, I just wanted to touch base that was the beginning of my education. I went for a really, really short time to a kindergarten, I guess it was. I don't recall it very much at all before we moved to the farm. But as I say, when we moved to the farm, there was no kindergarten there, so I had to wait for grade 1. It wasn't the cheeriest place or the best introduction to formal education, but I didn't lose my enthusiasm for learning. I thought there still was more out there. There were probably different teachers, better teachers for me, and there were. I had lots of very good teachers, had a few not so great teachers as well, some that I could do without. But as I try to tell my students here or online, you will run into all kinds of teachers. You will run into all kinds of employers. You will run into all kinds of people that you work with, etc. And it is part of the learning process to find your way, to find your education, or if you're in the workplace, to find your method of working that can accommodate or work with whoever you need to. And I mean, there may be times when it's completely impossible, but usually you can find a path. And if you're in school, you're normally going to have a different teacher next year, and you're certainly going to have different teachers as you move through the system and on to college and university, where you're only having a teacher for 1 or 2 classes in many cases. So you'll have lots of variety, and you can find teachers and professors that suit you sometimes when you get to that level. So learn to cope with different types of people. I have had teachers who were very tough, but they were great teachers. And I didn't always get the best marks in the classes with the teachers I liked the most. But sometimes I did, but sometimes I didn't. That's not a good teacher. A good teacher is not a teacher who's just easy, or who doesn't give you any homework, or who doesn't expect anything from you. That, in my opinion, is a poor teacher, and I always felt that. I didn't love doing homework when I was young either, but I did recognize when I had a good teacher, or when I had a teacher who pushed me or challenged me. And I may not have appreciated it all the time, but I did recognize it, and I certainly do appreciate it now. So that was the beginning of my education, and of course I went on to get lots more, and I continue to educate myself as I help educate others, and I think that everyone should do that. I think you should do that too. Keep learning. It's so good for yourself. It's really a gift to you, and the great thing is you can share that gift with others. The more you learn, the more you can share, the more you can help other people as well. And that feeds back to you again. So it's just a wonderful circle. So that's it for this week. I want you to have a great week. Keep reading, keep writing, keep learning, keep thinking, experiencing, and having fun. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, make a comment, ask a question. Check out the website. I'll put a link below. Check out the blog. I'll put a link there for that as well. In the meantime, it's Ron Johnson from L.T.L. Tutoring Central, and I will see you again, if not before, next week. Bye for now.